Hi, and welcome to Day 2 of Political Ecology. Yesterday, you read Chapter 1 of Paul Robbins' textbook, Political Ecology. Although there is lots of information in this chapter, this is a fairly clear description of political ecology, since Robbins not only tells us what political ecology is, but gives several examples and describes some common themes. He also helps us understand political ecology by comparing it to what he calls apolitical ecologies. And he uses the metaphors of the hatchet and the seed to help us understand the main components of the political ecology approach. This reading is an important foundation for the course, so I hope that you either took the time to read it carefully or that you'll review it again to better understand the main arguments. Now let's go over the quiz answers, and even if you got the 100% on the quiz, I encourage you to continue to listen to this presentation as we'll elaborate a little bit more on some of the correct answers. Question 1 of the quiz asked you, which of the following does Robbins cite as a main reason that wildlife in Kenya is declining faster than wildlife across the border in Tanzania? Now, not only are the first three answers wrong, but they're all wrong for particular reasons if we're taking a political ecology approach. In answer A, wildlife and humans cannot coexist in the pristine Kenyan Serengeti. Notice the word pristine. Political ecologists often avoid words such as pristine to describe nature because they see human society and nature as interrelated. The word pristine implies that these spheres can and even should exist as totally separate from each other. Just look at Robbins' critique of the pristine myth on page 12 of this chapter. We will talk more about this type of myth next week. What about responses B and C? Political ecologists do not normally explain environmental degradation in simple terms of climate or population growth. To do so would be to take an apolitical approach, according to Robbins. And we'll talk about what this means in just a moment. So this leaves us with D, the correct answer. Not only does this link human society and the environment, but it also is an answer that takes into account broader political and economic forces. Question number 2, political ecology is, the correct answer here is D, an analytical approach used across disciplines. Not only is it employed by geographers, anthropologists, and scholars from other disciplines, but it also forces us to blend disciplines in our research. For example, an anthropologist who uses a political ecology approach would benefit from having studied ecology or environmental studies, economics, history, or other disciplines, and then using insights from those disciplinary approaches in the study. Question 3 asks, why does Robbins suggest that overpopulation is more of a problem in the U.S. than in the Global South? And by Global South, this refers to developing countries, or some would say third world countries. And the correct answer is B, because Americans consume more resources per person than their counterparts in developing countries. I won't get into this much now because when we talk about population, resources, and the Malthusian legacy in week 3, we'll have a chance to explore this idea further. Question number 4 asks, what is a major problem with Malthus's theory about population growth and eco-scarcity? The answer is A, that this involves an anti-poor prejudice. And again, we'll talk about this more when we critique Malthusianism later in the course. Question 5 asks, what is one of Robbins' points about apolitical ecologies? Let's start by thinking of an example of an apolitical ecology. Referring back to quiz question 1 about the decline of wildlife in Kenya, many people might say that this decline is due to human population growth. Robbins would call this an apolitical ecology approach, not because there are truly no politics involved, but because the people who explain the problem in terms of population believe that they are being objective rather than political. Robbins argues that so-called apolitical ecologies are in fact biased towards certain political positions. Therefore, A is the correct answer. Question 6 asks, what analytical tool does Robbins offer for re-examining environmental narratives that tend to be taken for granted? Robbins describes two metaphorical tools that are employed in a political ecology approach. The correct answer for re-examining environmental narratives would be the hatchet. Think of the hatchet as hacking away at the biased stories or narratives that shape policy but lack substantiation. The other tool is the seed, and part of what you do with the seed is study the grounded, locally produced traditional knowledge that can contribute to better policy. You may have been thrown off by responses A and B because these both relate to political ecology as well. Political ecology, as an analytical approach, is often said to combine political economy and cultural ecology. In the lecture that you will watch in just a moment, I will discuss this history a bit further. The last question probably forced you to look back at page 14, which was the intention. By providing these 4 common theses in political ecology, Robbins is attempting to give us a sense of the scope of the approach. Political ecology studies tend to fall into these 4 categories, though they don't necessarily have to. The example provided in the question, the Indian villagers who abandon sustainable farming due to new methods brought in by development, this is an example of the degradation and marginalization thesis. Note the last sentence in Robbins' description of this thesis on page 14, he says, related assertions posit that modernist development efforts to improve production systems of local people have led contradictorily to decreased sustainability of local practice. We'll talk about this more when we discuss the Green Revolution.